Hey, October the 2nd, 2024, and with that, we welcome you back to Sports Talk. Along with Adrian Broadus, I'm Steve Kaplowitz, and Adrian, yesterday was the big announcement day. We had Jim Center to start us off on the show, and today we figured, well, there was one person we didn't get a chance to speak with yesterday, and why not begin the program with her on the phones with us?
Yeah, that's exactly right. UTEP president, Dr. Heather Wilson. I mean, yesterday, Steve, all the fans were rejoicing, so excited. Today, they pinched themselves. They weren't dreaming. So UTEP is indeed headed to the Mountain West, and this is real.
It really is. Dr. Wilson, first off, thank you so much for starting us off today. And like we mentioned when we had Jim on the show with us, congratulations on the news that was probably the most well-received news involving UTEP athletics that we've had in quite some time.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Now, I'm curious, Dr. Wilson, when we talk about, the events leading up to the news yesterday with UTEP going to the Mountain West Conference, we know you kept it very close to the vest and kept it under the radar. I'm wondering for you, the amount of work that went into talking to the proper channels and really trying to make your case for why UTEP should have the opportunity to be heading into the Mountain West.
Well, actually, Steve, it goes back to 2021. So Jim Center and I lived through conference realignment in 2021, and after that was over, we said, we need to make sure we put ourselves in a position to be desirable, so that when and if dominoes start to fall again, we would have choices. So put ourselves in a place to have choices. And the second piece was to be trusted and known by potential interlocutors. And the third is we had to be ready because things happen fast when the dominoes start to fall. So we kind of quietly tried to do that. And on the be desirable side, it was, we wanted to compete for and win championships to be sure. But there were other pieces that we knew were part of a decision that a conference makes on who's members, and we tried to put ourselves in good position there. We can go into that, but also to be trusted and known by potential presidents and ADs, and we worked hard at that. And then just being ready. But when it happened, it happened very quickly over about a 4 or 5 day period, and involved a lot of conversations, proposals and counter proposals and briefings and calls to supporters and so forth.
Were you pretty familiar with all the presidents in the Mountain West Conference prior to really the last couple of weeks?
Yes. And some of that had to do with research that we do together. Some of it was because we served together on the board of the Hispanic Serving Research Universities. Some of it was because of athletics. So quite a few of them, and of course, the head of the Air Force Academy just changed, but I had recently met with him at the Air Force Association conference. So those relationships are not just about athletics. They are, and in all of those cases, it was just building relationships of trust with other peer institutions.
Dr. Wilson, one of the interesting parts that UTEP Athletic Director Jim Center talked about yesterday was the fact that this is really going to help things like travel, geography, to play games in the Mountain Standard Time Zone. But, one of the things he closed off by saying was the student life and how that could improve with this move and this change for the Mountain West. How do you see it right there? How do you see the move to the Mountain West improving things at UTEP or helping in being a positive way in terms of athletics?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that it's better for our student athletes, even just the travel time and the time away from school. But I think it also helps because it's mostly in the Mountain Time Zone. And that's a real strategic advantage of the conference itself. And so there aren't a lot of schools in the Mountain Time Zone that are at the FBS level, and it'll be great to be playing in that time zone. I do think it also, for El Paso and also our student body, it brings back a lot of historic rivalries that still resonate. And obviously playing UNM every year, playing Wyoming every year, UNLV and so forth. These are great rivalry games that cause people to come out and say, "Hey, we're going to the game today, aren't you?" And And we need that support from the community. We also will need not just the engagement, but also frankly, the financial support of the community so that we use this not as a landing place, but as a starting place to just, climb the Mountain West.
UTEP President Dr. Heather Wilson with us here on Sports Talk as we kick things off on a Wednesday afternoon. Dr. Wilson, you're right about that, because when you look at budgets for athletics from Conference USA to the Mountain West, there is a noticeable jump. And although UTEP was very much in the middle of everything in Conference USA, going to the Mountain West, this university has some work to do. More than some, has a lot of work to do. And you said it best with your last answer. I mean, now that fans are excited about bringing rivalries back, they need to be excited also about what will go into evening the playing field, which is more season tickets, more donations, and ultimately just more money, more support financially for the university.
That'll matter a lot, and you're right, season tickets and other things. We've also started to do some things, and we didn't wait to change conferences to do them. We did 36 events at the Don Haskins, or 34 events at the Don Haskins, ticketed events at the Don Haskins this last year. But when we came out of the pandemic, one of the things we looked at was, are we actually bringing money back into the university to maintain our facilities? Because that's important. And so those other events also help UTEP maintain its facilities and its athletics. We also probably don't count some things that other schools may. As an example, our athlete academic centers actually run through the provost's office. It doesn't show up in the athletics budget. Well, we need to make sure we report what we're doing properly. And then when we work with donors on improving athletics, we want to make sure it really matters. What are the things that really improve the performance and the experience of student athletes? And we will try to focus there. And that's such a UTEP thing. We're always trying to get $1.10 of value out of every dollar that we spend.
You mentioned the 34 events at the Don Haskins Center. We were at the press conference you held a few months ago with Jorge Vasquez talking about the Sun Bowl. And at that point, trying to get improvements for the Sun Bowl on the county bond, which unfortunately did not come to pass. But I'm wondering, as aggressive as you've been with the Don Haskins Center, are the plans also in place for you to try to have more and more outdoor shows at the Sun Bowl venue to potentially capitalize on revenue there?
In fact, we are. But one of the things that we discovered is that there are reasons that acts are going through El Paso and not stopping in El Paso except for gas. And that's why we went to the county, which, of course, the county built the Sun Bowl for us in the 1960s. And there are some things about the Sun Bowl that really need to be updated. We know we've got to update the player locker rooms no matter what. But there are also ways to make the Sun Bowl much better for the city of El Paso, and that's what we put forward to the county. The county wasn't able to do it in this year's bond, but life's long, and we hope to continue to work with the community in order to have a more positive impact on the community in which we live and use these facilities to benefit the university as well as the community.
Transitioning to the Mountain West in 2026 will require some kind of an exit strategy with Conference USA financially, and then, getting some of that relief coming from the Mountain West. Where did those negotiations start?
Well, first of all, again, one of the things I said at the top was that we needed to be trusted and known by our partners. And that's not just the Mountain West or other conferences. It's also Conference USA. When we went through the realignment in 2021, it really bothered me that there were some schools that were not transparent with partners or with Conference USA. And I, there are a few of them where if they had been lawyers, they might have been disbarred. There was a clear conflict of interest and they weren't transparent. We weren't going to do that. We were very open with Conference USA when we were approached. We're working through with them the issue of grant of rights, but we were very honest and open, transparent with Conference USA as well as the Mountain West, so there are some exit fees that we are going to have to pay, and we were open with the Mountain West about what those were. and we think financially we'll be able to do this.
That's good news. It really is. Now, I'm wondering, since in 2 years you joined the Mountain West, how soon, Dr. Wilson, until you're now being consulted with the rest of the league regarding future expansion plans, the media deal, does that immediately happen, or does that happen as you become a full-fledged member in 2026?
Well, as I understand it, we will actually be consulted somewhat starting now. The Mountain West is working through some of its bylaws issues with some of the schools that have left or have announced that they're leaving the conference, and so we'll let them work that through. But we've already, and I assume Jim has as well, and my phone lit up with a bunch of texts welcoming us to the Mountain West from the other presidents in the conference, and so I look forward to engaging with them and trying to make a positive contribution to the Mountain West.
You're also very active when it comes to athletics. You're at a lot of games. You're always talking to fans and really trying to establish that relationship and connection with you as the president of the university and the Miner fan base. That is something that I feel has always been important to you since you arrived, and now that UTEP will be heading to the Mountain West, I feel like fans are just going to be that much more excited when you have the opportunity to attend different sporting events.
My view is that athletics is really the front porch of the university, and it's one of the ways in which the community as a whole engages with the university. There's so many students who have said, "Oh yeah, the first time I came to campus was for such and such a game," or my grandfather used to always take me, and so we're a part of the community that way, and it's important to be there on the front porch and connecting with the community. I will also say that I was a college athlete, and I rowed boats. I was a road crew, and I know how athletics can help young people develop as leaders. You learn to pick yourself up when you get knocked down. You learn to play as a team and cover for each other. Those are all really important life lessons, and athletics helps to teach those.
You've seen volleyball and the reaction to Ben Wallace as he's built this program. Since you've now been here, 4 or 5 years, as you look back at everything, is UTEP one of the schools in the group of 5 that, in your opinion, have the highest potential in terms of growth and revenue as the wins start to pile up?
I think we're a university on the rise in a lot of different ways. And athletics is one, and engagement with the community as a result of athletics and other things is another. But it shows up in research, it shows up in our enrollment, it shows up in philanthropy, and our impact on the community and the economy of the community we serve. So I think we're on the rise, and it's on all fronts.
We're excited. Tomorrow night, Sun Bowl will be the Miners and Sam Houston State returning to football action, just the second home game of the 2024 season. We'll have it for you here on 600 ESPN El Paso. And Dr. Wilson, again, thank you so much for starting us off. And as you might imagine, a lot of very excited and happy El Pasoans right now.
Count me in on that. It's been a great week.
We'll come back with more in a moment right after Charlie 1. He has our first traffic update of the afternoon.
Well, if he swung at the ball, if by the rule, if he swung at the ball, if he was hit while swinging at the ball, it doesn't count as a hit by pitch. I'm looking
right here,
what the count
and
was when this happened.
I don't know if I call that a swing. Like, he gets hit, but
Well,
that's a really, really borderline call, but apparently the Orioles aren't going to challenge it. It's a strikeout. It's an awful break for Baltimore. And instead of having 1 out, a run in on a hit by pitch, now all of a sudden it's 2 outs, bases loaded, and Adley Rutschman trying to give the Orioles the lead. What a wild turn of events in Baltimore right now.
Yeah, it's they just got their first run of the series here, 13, 14 innings in. They're going to need more than that if they're going to keep playing after today here.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. But you look at what's happened so far with the AL Central, and what a showing. I mean, the Tigers knocked the Astros out. We'll see if, in fact, Rutschman can get some more runs in and give the Orioles the lead. But before we worry about Adley, let's talk about what Detroit was able to do yesterday and today against the Astros.
Yeah, it's it's just impressive. I mean, the Astros always had this air of inevitability that they were going to come back. They certainly were positioned to come back yesterday before Spencer Torkelson speared that Jason Hayward liner to end the game, and today they actually took the lead there before before the Tigers exploded with Ibanez's bases loaded double. So this has been quite entertaining. I mean, we knew this was not the Astros team of yesteryear, but their starting pitching has been very good, even without Justin Verlander pitching well enough to make the postseason rotation. I'm surprised because this is the first time since 2016 that we won't have the Astros in the ALCS.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what else it goes to show you. I mean, the Tigers are one of the hotter teams towards the end of the season. So the big story there is that they were able to get themselves, hot at the perfect time. And and by the way, the Royals just got out of a bases loaded, nobody out jam. That's incredible. So the Orioles strand 3. The Royals are now still deadlocked at 1, and Baltimore just blew a golden opportunity to try to get back into this game, and we'll see if, in fact, they can win in the later innings. But back to the Tigers for a second. They're a story that nobody really expected. Nobody would have expected them to knock out Houston. And when you're dealing with a lineup like they have, there are few fans of baseball that could probably name you more than a handful of players that are in the starting lineup for the Tigers. Yeah,
I mean, this is a young team. It's also one. I mean, if you think it's hard coming up with the names in the lineup, look at the rotation. Where aside from Tarek Skubal, they've been just patching together, different configurations that have been a lot of relievers. They traded Jack Flaherty to the Dodgers in July because they didn't think they had a shot at the playoffs, and they've been using openers and rookies, and I think Casey Mize was the other regular starter, and it did not look like a sustainable plan. But AJ Hinch has done a really great job, and we've seen some sustained success with an opener, which most other teams have abandoned that strategy by now. With the occasional exception of what's basically becoming a bullpen game here and there, the Dodgers having to do it and some other teams having to do it now and then. A lot of times just to give their starters an extra day's break. But for the Tigers, it's been business as usual.
If the Royals are able to knock the Orioles out of the postseason today, and you've got Kansas City and Detroit both moving on from the wild card rounds, that is about the last thing anybody would have expected.
Yeah, I mean, especially, the AL Central has hardly been a powerhouse in recent years. So not a lot of people picking them, certainly not a lot of people expecting that division to have so many playoff teams coming out of it. But that is the way it has unfolded here with both Detroit and Kansas City getting in.
Jay Jaffe from Fangraphs.com joining us here on Sports Talk as we continue. Okay, let's move to the National League for a second. We've got the Mets in Milwaukee. Let's start with that series first. Mets win yesterday. They got a 1-0 lead. You tell me, as far as baseball games go, where do you put Game 1 of that Monday doubleheader with the Mets Braves on your all-time list?
Oh, I mean, it's up there. It's certainly is a game that's going to be talked about for a long time, just the way that they came back not once but twice with Francisco Lindor hitting what proved to be the decisive home run that put the Mets in the playoffs. I mean, Lindor missed a week there with back issues, and he had been carrying the team down the stretch. I think that there was a stat. I think it's now seven home runs since some point in August here that have either tied the ball game or given the Mets the lead. And it's funny, I was thinking when he came up to bat, boy, if he gets on base here and he feels good enough to steal a base, he's going to get that 30-30 season that we thought would be almost automatic before he went down. And instead, well, he didn't get the opportunity to steal a base, but he did something even better.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. Meanwhile, as far as Milwaukee goes, they have an opportunity right now to tie the series with the Mets up and force a Game 3 back in New York. And I don't know, Jay. I look at the job the Brewers did all season long, 93 wins. Pat Murphy's team did it without, the services of one of their best hitters for the last couple of months. And that in itself is pretty impressive when you think about just how this team was able to put it together. And again, another team that doesn't have necessarily the kind of lineup that people would expect. But you've got a young team. William Contreras, one of the best young catchers in the game. Willie Adames, one of the best shortstops in the game. Jackson Churio has really come into his own out in left field. And that's what makes this Milwaukee team, I think, pretty special more than anything else. They've done it with that mix, and all I can tell you is, they've been fun to watch.
Yeah, it's a very resourceful organization. I do look at this pitching matchup tonight, though, with Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas, and I think the Brewers are at a real disadvantage here. Manaea has been a very reliable starter for the Mets this year after kind of reconfiguring his arsenal. Montas was a guy that the Brewers got at the deadline. He had a 5 ERA for the Reds. Got that down to about 4.5 for the Brewers, but that's still pretty high. He's not going to be on a very short leash. The Brewers are going to have to watch him very closely here. There's an interesting stat so far. If you include the 2020 first round, when they created the system that has closely resembles the current one with 12 teams. Only twice have we seen a wild card series out of the 13 that have been completed. Only twice have we seen a best-of-3 series actually go 3 games. Just about every other time, the team that's won Game 1 has also won Game 2. So, when you put a team's back to the wall in these, it hasn't worked out for them.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprising, but that's the way it's unfolded. It makes me miss the old 10-team format and those exciting one game winner take all wild card games that much more.
No doubt. Christian Yelich is who I was talking about earlier.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean to not fill in the words there, but being without Yelich has been a bummer for them. And this is the team that traded their former Cy Young winner Corbin Burns in the off season.
Good point.
He pitched well yesterday in a losing cause for the Orioles.
Yeah, he really did. And meanwhile, as far as the Mets go, sky's the limit. I mean, I don't want to say Mets-Yankees World Series. This is not 2000 with these two teams, but I will say that the Mets, sometimes, again, you have the right mix, you have the right manager, you have the right clubhouse. Teams play well in the end of the season, and we already know that since the end of May, the Mets have been one of the best teams record-wise in all of baseball.
Yeah, the more I watch, the more I've been impressed with Carlos Mendoza, their manager. I mean, I know that there's some complaints about the way he's run his bullpen, but he kept this team from quitting on itself. They were 11 games under 500 as of June 2nd. Lindor was off to kind of a slow start. They had been missing Francisco Alvarez due to injuries, and right around the time that Alvarez got back and Lindor started hitting, this team took off, they could have missed out on the playoffs with that scheduling ridiculousness with the Braves. But it all worked out for them, and now that they're here, they're still in it, and they're in a good position, so I like their chances.
Talking with Jay Jaffe, Jay joining us from Fangraphs.com. You wrote about the NL wildcard preview between the Padres and the Braves. We've saved that for last. Last night, San Diego able to get some timely offense at the beginning of the game thanks to Fernando Tatis with that 2-run monster jack. And what a performance by Michael King. I mean, you look at that Juan Soto trade, and what the Padres got back, and realize that, Michael King has been one of the more serviceable starting pitchers the Pods have had all season long, and he put together the start of his career last night against Atlanta.
Yeah, King was the centerpiece of the return from the Yankees for Juan Soto, and I know it hurt Yankee fans to lose him because he had been a valuable swingman and multi-inning reliever for New York. But to get quality, you got to give up quality, and he has turned out to be one of the top pitchers in the National League. I don't think anybody foresaw him dominating the way he did last night. 12 strikeouts, no walks, no runs, just phenomenal. He's really come on strong in the second half of the season, in particular, as I noted in my preview. Adding a slider into his mix, which has given him 3 pitches to work hitters horizontally and keep them off balance, and it's really been very effective.
How do you see tonight's game going with Max Fried for Atlanta against Joe Musgrove for San Diego?
Well, Musgrove has pitched very well since coming back from his elbow issues. He's got a bone spur and a bone bruise in there, but he looked much more like the ace Joe Musgrove that we've known in the past. But the Braves with Fried throwing are actually in a pretty decent position because the Padres really struggled against lefties. They had the widest platoon split favoring righties over lefties than of any team that's in the playoffs by about 20 points of WRC plus, and so this is their vulnerability here. Going against the lefties, which is why, if the Braves could have somehow stolen Game 1, they would have been in a very good position. So this may be the series that goes 3. We'll see.
Meanwhile, as far as your work at Fangraphs, what are you going to be writing about the rest of the week?
I am struggling through, but going to get through a Pete Rose piece for tomorrow. I wouldn't exactly call it a tribute. I'm not recalling him so fondly, but I am sort of reckoning with his on and off the field, his on-field accomplishments and his off-field issues. I don't think I could let the moment pass without weighing in. I participated in that HBO documentary that ran earlier this year, Charlie Hustle and the Matter of Pete Rose. I was interviewed for it 2 years ago, and surprised that my footage made the final cut. It was an honor to be part of it. So I've thought about him a lot lately, and some of that's reflected in this piece. And then I think I'm going to be writing about Gavin Lux of the Dodgers for later this week, and then this weekend I will be covering the Yankees as they start their division series. I'll be covering the first 2 games on Saturday and Monday here in New York, so it's going to be a busy time. Also planning on hopefully getting out to Citi Field if the Mets are in it for at least one of the games. We're fleshing out our coverage plan. We've got our associate editor, Matt Martell, is also going to be on the scene there.
I'll tell you this much. If you take away all the controversy surrounding Rose and you just look at his accomplishments as it relates to Hall of Fame, there's no question. There is absolutely none whatsoever. But then you look at the controversy surrounding what really what the last 20 years or 25 years of Pete Rose's life was like. And yeah, I get it, Jay. I do, especially for somebody like yourself. Why you're probably pretty conflicted in terms of just looking at his body of work for everything involved because of what happened towards the end and really what it did to his reputation, his career, and ultimately his legacy.
Yeah, it's a tarnished legacy. I mean, there's only a small number of players have been banished for life. Put on the permanently ineligible list. That is, it is not a ban that ends with the end of his life. It is a reinstatement that probably is not possible now for him. The conditions for it that Commissioner Bart Giamatti put on him and that other commissioners have upheld is they wanted him to reconfigure his life, and he was gambling. As the documentary I just referred to showed, he was still gambling in 2022. He was gambling on baseball. He was gambling on football. Stuff that was legal for a private citizen to do, but it was stuff that also did not demonstrate I think to Major League Baseball's satisfaction, that he understood why he had been banned and how he needed to change his life to demonstrate that it was no longer an issue for him.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, as far as beer pick of the week, what would you like to profile for our listeners this week?
Oh, geez, I had a new Threes beer, and I'm sorry I'm blanking on the name here. Let me go up to the fridge and see if I still have any of it left. This was a good one. It was one of their hazy IPAs, and I saw it on the shelf, and I was like, oh, I gotta try this. This is new here.
It's okay. While you're looking, I will say Bobby Witt Jr. just legged out an infield single to knock in a run. So the Royals just took the lead again 2-1 here with 2 outs in the top of the 6th inning.
Okay, here it is. I've got it. This is called Delicate Genius. It is a hazy IPA, and it uses an experimental hop called HBC 586. Quote, one of the more exciting experimental hop varieties we've come across in recent years, bright and fruity with prominent notes of mango, guava, lychee, and citrus. So, yeah, I like this one a lot. This is a 7% ABV beer. It's one I will hopefully work into the rotation if they keep putting it out there.
Sounds great. Jay, always enjoy the conversation. Appreciate you giving us the lowdown on the postseason, and we'll look forward to the next time we get to chat with you here during the playoffs.
All right, sounds good, Steve. Take care.
You too. He's Jay Jaffe, folks. 39 past as we continue. Back with more Sports Talk. 600 ESPN El Paso. 47 past the hour, now 48 past the hour here on Sports Talk. Noda Begay III is going to join us here at 5 o'clock. Excited about that. Noda's got a new golf. It's going to be a collegiate tournament to announce, and it's going to be happening just north of Albuquerque with New Mexico State, the University of Texas, and Stanford. And it's coming up next weekend, the 8th and 9th. Actually, sorry, next week. Next week. It'll be next Tuesday and Wednesday, the 8th and 9th. So we'll have Noda Begay joining us here at 5, and then Jeff Erickson. Meanwhile, Kansas City has taken a 2-1 lead in the bottom of the 6th inning over Baltimore. And if the Orioles lose this game, they will go back, and that bases loaded, nobody out, in a 1-1 game will haunt them the rest of their offseason. They came out with nothing. And the craziest play ever was when Colton Cowser went around, got hit in the hand. But because he went around, it was a strikeout and not a hit by pitch. And instead of a run coming in with the bases loaded and 1 out and a 2-1 Orioles lead, it was 2 outs, no run comes in, and suddenly the Orioles cannot produce. And the Royals got out of it. They just scored here in the top of the 6th, and they're trying to end Baltimore's season. And I'll tell you this, if Kansas City and Detroit end up winning these 2 wild card series, that is about and knocking out Baltimore and Houston, that is as wild a scene as you will find in the baseball playoffs. And Alberto, that is why, fans love playoff baseball, because you just have to expect the unexpected. And Baltimore and Houston exiting in 2 games in a row would be about as unexpected as possible.
Yeah, that would be extremely, extremely interesting. And I think that, I don't know. I can't remember the last time this happened, but you know what? That's really what I love about wild card playoffs. Anywhere in football, baseball, is anything can happen. Any team can get the better of any team on any given night and walk away with an upset. We saw it already with the Astros. They had a horrible outing earlier. They were the early game. Now it's up to Kansas City. Bobby Witt Jr., 2 hits on 4 at-bats and an RBI, huh?
Yep, he legged out an infield single that knocked in the go-ahead run right now. Meanwhile, tough news for Dodger fans as they announced Fernando Valenzuela stepping away from his role as a Spanish-language radio broadcaster for the remainder of the postseason to focus on his health. Now, the Dodgers did say that Valenzuela aims to return for the 2025 season, but here's somebody who's been doing this since 2003 and, really one of the most popular Dodgers of all time. So you just hope that Fernando will be okay and he will be able to, return to the broadcast booth sometime in 2025. But yes, Fernando on leave to focus on his health. That is a big storyline as well. Now, Dr. Heather Wilson joined us on the show, and she again, as a lot of Miner fans will probably echo those sentiments, putting UTEP in a really good spot moving forward, starting in 2026, as they return to the Mountain West Conference. I did find this story particularly interesting, and that is that the Pac-12, or right now the Pac-7, is not going to look to have any expansion take place until after their new media rights deal gets finalized. And that could take anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months. So I know there were some Miners fans that were holding out hope that UTEP could have ended up in the Pac as opposed to the Mountain West. But think about this. If they would have really wanted the Pac and decided, we'll wait until the media deal is over to see what happens, and in doing so, allowed the Mountain West to fill up, and then by the time the Pac does get its media deal, what if they don't get the invite? What if they don't get the opportunity, and then they're stuck in Conference USA? So to me, once again, the Mountain West was the right move. You had to do it. You had to secure a placement for yourself and going forward. And you just couldn't risk waiting it out to see what would have happened if, in fact, the Pac-12 didn't come to fruition. So I thought that was a really interesting storyline, and we'll have to now wait out to see what kind of a media deal the Pac gets when it's all said and done. Okay, let me get Fernie in. He's joining us next. We're wrapping up hour 1 of 2 here on Sports Talk. Nota Begay III right around the corner. Fernie, how are you?
Good, man. Well, a couple of days ago, I was like, no way, we're not going to get into the Mountain West or Pac-10, Pac-12, I was just so, skeptical, and all of a sudden it drops on us, so, and then I don't think it would have, the Pac-12, I don't think so, but man, the Mountain West is just so great. And I got to give my kudos to Center and to Dr. Wilson. I know initially Dr. Wilson, when she accepted the position here at UTEP, there was a lot of negative feedback on her because she was a Republican and all this. But I think she's done great for the university. This is one thing she did here is that's a great feat. Same with Center. Like I said, I'm hoping the wins come along, especially tomorrow.
I'm with you, Fernie. I'm hoping the wins start to come along, too. Like I said, we've seen just with Ben Wallace and volleyball how revitalizing a program can make the whole city excited, and I'm hoping that eventually will happen soon with football. And then basketball build on their run to the conference championship last year.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we build up a good, build up a rivalry with UNM again. If it's so close by that it's just going to be something to travel to. That just makes sense. And unfortunately, NMSU is still out there with Conference USA. It would be great if they were part of the conference also.
I could see that still happening. It's possible. It is very possible that when it's all said and done, now that Texas State is out of the equation, maybe New Mexico State does, in fact, get in to the Mountain West. We'll have to wait and see how things break over the next few days, Fernie, but that is an interesting storyline to keep an eye on. I appreciate the phone call. All right, 1 down, 1 to go. We've got playoff baseball an hour away. We'll bring you Padres and Braves at 6 o'clock, game 2. But up next, Nota Begay III. He's going to join us on our Longhorn Distributing Hotline, where all of our guests always appear as Sports Talk continues, 600 ESPN El Paso. It's the start of hour number 2 here on Sports Talk. Welcome back, everybody. Steve Kaplowitz with you, and we got a lot to cover here this hour, and we're going to talk a little golf to begin things. I'm excited about this because This next guest really needs no introduction. He's been a part of our show over the years, and he is a part of a huge college golf event. It's a match play event that's going to be live on the Golf Channel October the 8th and October 9th. So can't wait to spend some time with Nota Begay III. And first off, welcome back to the show, Nota. It's been way too long, and it's always great to have you on the program.
It certainly has, and I'm glad to be back, and lots going on in that part of the state with sports, and hoping to add some more interesting news to your agenda there.
Well, I feel like the NB3 collegiate match play is just that. This is the first ever match play at the national collegiate level, and there's a lot to talk about here. So first off, congratulations on the event. For people that know, NB3 is exactly you, Nota Begay III, but you're teaming also with Pueblo of Santa Ana to put this collegiate match play event on. First off, how many years in the making is this event?
Well, it's at least 2 years in the making in terms of concept, and as you know, and all the listeners know, none of these things get off the ground without great partners. Pueblo Santa Ana and Nucenda Credit Union stepped up to really give us an opportunity to showcase the teams, the college teams in New Mexico and our region. New Mexico State's going to be one of our competing teams, both men's and women's programs. That's what sort of makes our format a little bit different. We have both the men's and women's teams from Stanford, Texas, New Mexico State, and University of New Mexico. They're all going to get together in a match play format, which is a great made-for-TV type of format, and we're going to see who comes out on top in just under a week.
Man, I love that. By the way, picking these teams, well, first off, you have the two New Mexico teams between the Aggies and the Lobos. That's huge. The University of Texas speaks for itself. We know the kind of golfers that they produce. And then, of course, your alma mater in Stanford. I mean, was that the fun part, was trying to figure out exactly who would be participating in the first ever match play event?
Yes, it was. It was hard to sort of make sure that we had the right mix. Obviously, it's a no-brainer to have teams that are from our area. You know, maybe down the road, UTEP will be one of our invited teams to come up and participate now that they're going to be moving into the MountainWest Conference and renew that old rivalry with University of Mexico that you and I sort of lived through quite some time ago, the Tim Hardaway and Phil Smith days. Maybe a lot of listeners don't remember those guys. But you know, it's really focused on just showcasing some of the top college golf talent, and beautiful golf course, wonderful layout, tough layout, and you know, you have some of the premier programs in the country that are going to come in here and just make themselves heard.
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, I'm looking right now at just as far as New Mexico State goes, they've had plenty of first-team All-Americans over the years for the men. You know, the women have had some All-Americans as well. Same thing goes for the University of New Mexico. And then I look at Texas and what they've done. 47 conference titles, most recently a couple years ago. The women have 17 as recent as 2022. Stanford, 12 conference championships for the men, 4 conference championships for the women, and they did it here this year. So that just shows the quality of talent that's going to be on display at the Pueblo Santa Ana.
Yeah, just lots of conference championships, and you know, but one of the interesting things that I think we should make your listeners aware of is, you know, Coach John Fields, the head coach at University of Texas, lots of success there, had lots of success as a head coach at University of Mexico, but he grew up in Las Cruces, and he was one of the first people to say yes to the invitation because he knew how important a nationally televised event would be to the state and to our teams and just kind of everything that those sorts of opportunities bring. So I really can't thank him enough for getting behind this. And then my alma mater, Stanford, both the men's and women's programs, and Walker, their team won the national championship less than a year ago and come in as the reigning national champion. So it's just all in all a great chance for people to see in our area the premier golfing talent in the country.
It's so true. Nota Begay III joining us here on Sports Talk. In fact, for those of you that remember the Sun Bowl College All-American Golf Classic, which has not been back since COVID, I think it's important to note that, this is one of the rare opportunities in our area. We could get to see these 4 terrific programs compete next week. Again, October 8th, so a week from it's going to be next Tuesday, and that's going to be 3:30 El Paso time on the 8th, and then 2:30 El Paso time on Wednesday, October the 9th. Now, that's going to be on the Golf Channel and Peacock, but you can actually go to the Pueblo Santa Ana and watch this in person. In fact, admission is free. There's even going to be an autograph area for high school and junior golfers to meet some of the best collegiate golfers in the country. I love the fact that you're catering this to the young golfers. I think that's the best part about this, Nota, that fans can make the trip. It's during the intersession anyway here in El Paso, so a lot of kids are off from school next week. They can go watch this and get some autographs and meet potential PGA and LPGA stars.
Yeah, I mean, I guarantee you 3 or 4 of these players that play at Twin Warriors, they'll be on the LPGA and PGA Tour in the next 2 to 3 years. And so, one of the things, and I really appreciate you bringing that up because, I started a national junior golf tournament 5 years ago, and it's become the second largest junior golf tournament in the country. We had over 6,000 kids compete in this event just this year. And what we do is we put that event on television. It's contested in November. And so I have a deep tie and a deep interest in promoting opportunity for young junior golfers, especially those that don't necessarily come from a tremendous amount of resource. The thing that sets our tour apart is that at our local level events, it's only $79 to play in a nationally ranked event where you get points that go towards your national ranking. There's no membership fees. There's no resumes. Just show up and come show us your talent. And if you're good enough, you can qualify from one of those local to a regional event and then on to our nationals. But, we hope that a lot of kids come out. We already have over 50 kids signed up to come meet the players and interact with the players and get autographs. And like I said, there's no admission. It's free of charge. And we really love to see as many people come out and check it out.
This is also the largest golf event that's going to be taking place in the state of New Mexico this year.
It will. By all means, there isn't any nationally televised events that come out of New Mexico, and that was a big part of why we wanted to do this. We hope to build it, to grow it, and to continue to support, in a way that gives the rest of America a chance to kind of see all the things that we love about where we live.
Nota Begay III with us here on Sports Talk. We're talking about, once again, if you're just tuning in, it's going to be the first ever National Collegiate Match Play event at Twin Warriors. And it's happening with Pueblo of Santa Ana next Tuesday and Wednesday. So a lot of opportunities to make the trip up and check this out in person. In fact, I know a good portion of the proceeds are going to benefit your foundation. Let's talk about the foundation. It's been around now for almost 20 years. Is it hard to believe that you established this in 2005 and seen it grow like it has?
It really is, and I'm so appreciative to everybody that's gotten behind it, the different companies, the organizations, the larger sort of funding nonprofits across the country that have invested sort of in our vision of promoting a lifestyle of wellness amongst Native American youth. We work primarily we do reach out to just whoever's interested in participating in our programs just to provide them with, number one, positive programs that we implement bits and pieces of health-related information like hydration, proper nutrition, good sleep, just simple things that I think are a little bit more tangible. We're not trying to sort of teach them how to fly to the moon, so to speak, but just, everyday habits that they can implement into their lives that, give them a chance to sort of live a healthy and long life, which is a big challenge these days. Our kids are growing up with some pretty poor health disparities, and we're trying to give them a chance to sort of get a leg up on that.
Noda, what's the goal for you as far as the collegiate match play event? Do you want to keep it there at Pueblo Santa Ana? Do you want to move it around? Are you looking to to just feature this all over the country? Where do you see this growing in years?
Well, just like any event, you want to continue to attract the finest programs in the country. We want to bring in a diverse group of teams. So we might see Stanford and Texas this year. Next year we may bring in a University of Oregon and a Florida. We just want to sort of showcase teams that don't necessarily and really don't have a reason to come here, but to give them a reason to be here, and then to expose those players to our young junior golfers, not just on the sporting side, but also on the educational side as well, just to make sure that they're aware that there's a lot of different institutions out there that they have a chance to compete for and get into those places and see parts of the world, sort of what golf did for me. I'm trying to just kind of open up different opportunities for young kids, because I hate to sort of confine them to a certain set of expectations. I'd rather them define their own sense of future and their own realities.
Not to mention, who knows? You could become you could see a future star on the tour, and next thing you know, they could be representing America in the President's Cup, like we just had this past weekend.
Yes, and I was just in Montreal. Just got back a couple days ago, and that was a wonderful event. Coach Mike Weir did a great job of captaining the international side, although they did fall short. It was way closer than what the score indicated. If everybody watched, or for whoever watched, got a chance to see just how much depth the American team had, because a lot of those matches were up for grabs with about 5 or 6 holes left, and then the Americans just kind of put the gas down and ended up winning the majority of those matches, which ended up being the difference in that final score. But kudos to the U.S., to Jim Furyk. So many of my peers are captains and assistant captains now, and it's fun to watch them sort of work their magic as they try and win these international competitions. And there's a big one on the horizon, Steve, and it's called the Ryder Cup in just about a year, so that's going to be pretty big.
I hope we talk to you long before then, but in the meantime, folks, if you would like to see Noda Begay III next week, all you got to do is head down to Pueblo of Santa Ana and check out the first ever National Collegiate Match Play event at Twin Warriors. If you can make it. Next Tuesday, it starts at 3:30, and then Wednesday the 9th at 2:30, and it's going to go on for 3 hours each day. It's going to air on the Golf Channel and Peacock as well. Noda, listen, terrific stuff. Always great catching up with you. Thanks for the time, and we look forward to doing it again with you right around the corner.
I appreciate you, Steve. Thanks, and appreciate you taking an interest in our event.
You got it. He's Noda Begay III, and he joins us here on Sports Talk. We'll take a time out, come back, more in a moment as we continue 600 ESPN El Paso. 22 past as we continue here on Sports Talk. All right, let's bring him back. He is our 600 ESPN El Paso resident fantasy expert, the one and only Jeff Erickson from RotoWire.com, your one-stop shop for all fantasy sports. And what a bonus for us. We get Jeff on to talk fantasy football, but we also have some playoff baseball going on right now. Do you believe that we are 6 outs away from the Royals and the Tigers both advancing on the same day into the AL Divisional Series?
Bad day to have orange uniforms, huh? It's wild to see, and although the Tigers have some orange in them too, I forgot about that. Mm-hmm. But it's wild. Well, I'm not surprised yesterday that especially in the first game, the Detroit-Houston game, the team with the best starting pitcher won. Tariq Skubal won. Cole Reagans was awesome yesterday too, and Baltimore really hasn't been hitting well down the stretch. Adley Rutschman quietly had pretty bad final 3 months of the season. Ever since he took a foul tip off his hand, he's really kind of struggled. And, the Orioles lost Westberg. He hasn't really been the same since coming back. This is just not the same team that we saw in the first half of the season. So I'm not totally surprised. Even Houston, they started terribly this year. Their pitching launched them back in. But who do they have at first base? Who do they have in the outfield? This is not the strongest Houston team that we've seen for sure. And so I'm not totally stunned that they lost.
I'll say this about Houston. Kyle Tucker's been a shell of the player he was before the injury. Afterwards. He's just not the same, you're right, and he didn't have enough outfield to help out. And as far as this Orioles game goes, look, they had their opportunity in the fifth. Bases loaded, nobody out, 1-1 game. They knocked out Lugo after he gets the first out. And then probably the play of the series is when Colton Cowser gets hit on a swing, and they rule him out, saying he struck out because he went around and gets hit in the hand, and then they end up not scoring that inning. That was huge for Baltimore.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge, massive detail there. Not getting anybody in with bases loaded, nobody out. Oh. It's really wild to see. You mentioned Tucker, and I'm glad you did. The play that stuck out to me was Houston had just started to rally. They bring in the lefty to face Tucker, and he grounds into a double play in the first pitch, and he wasn't even close to getting there at first base. Yeah. Ever since, I just don't think he's running at full speed. I think first of all, they didn't disclose the injury / didn't diagnose it properly to begin with, or maybe they were obscuring it, but it was more than just a shin bruise. It was a broken bone there, and I don't think he's the same guy yet. Maybe next year in the spring he will be, and in fact he'll probably be a good buy low because of all this has happened. Same with Rutschman here. I think he's playing through stuff too, and I think you'll see a different player next year in the spring.
No, I agree with that. And again, when you talk about catchers, William Contreras was your most valuable fantasy catcher this year, and really it wasn't even close. The Brewers' young backstop did things that nobody was really doing at the catcher position.
Yeah, even running, which was kind of fun to see a little bit there. Yeah, batting leadoff for them at many times there. It's been fun to watch him. But yeah, so we'll see. I think Rutschman will probably drop around next year, and I'll probably be in on that price.
Meanwhile, I think Astros fans after this series ended were kind of wishing they still had A.J. Hinch.
Oh, I'm sure they were. But that's water under the bridge a long time ago. Sure. There. I think they're also wishing they would have spent more on some hitting in the off season there. They thought Jose Abreu was going to be their solution at first base. That he kind of showed some bounce back second half last year, and that would be the version they get. And unfortunately, it wasn't. It's just, it was clearly like they had a hole in their lineup there. They had a couple holes in their lineup, and that's not the Astros. The Astros, all along, they've been bludgeoning teams, and they just didn't have that lineup this year.
No, you're right. And then the National League Series getting ready to get going with the Mets and Milwaukee, and then, of course, tonight, Atlanta and San Diego. These are fun series. That Mets game Monday was wild, and look, it got them in the postseason. Atlanta won the second game, so they've got that Padres team that, again, yesterday, what an outing from Michael King. You get Fernando Tatis Jr. with a big home run. That's all she wrote. And I'm interested to see if the Braves can win with Max Fried tonight or if the Pods will close them out.
Yeah, and yesterday was a clear pitching advantage for San Diego, and it showed up right away. I mean, A.J. Smith-Shawver had pitched one game in the majors this year, but because of Chris Sale's injury, because of the doubleheader, it really went sideways for the Braves there. And now they're going to be playing under a lot of pressure. So we'll see how they react to all that there. But today, I mean, it's a pretty even pitching matchup. Two really good pitchers. But then tomorrow, if it gets to tomorrow, I mean, the Padres still have Dylan Cease. And I'm sure they'd rather be able to win tonight so they can save Cease to open the next series. But got to win one game at a time, too.
And if Sean Manaea closes out the Brewers, it was a great regular season for Milwaukee, but it's just another reminder that sometimes if you're hot going into the postseason, that can do everything for you.
Yeah, it can. Sean Manaea, I think he's a great story. He watched Chris Sale and how he threw his slider and goes, I'm just going to throw like Chris Sale. good to be tall, left-handed, and throw hard, so you can do that sort of thing. But yeah, it was just a great little role model, and it really turned him into a real plus pitcher this year.
Happy you mentioned Chris Sale, because he's not in this series, and that could come back to kill Atlanta, because he was their best pitcher throughout the season, and it's a shame that an injury that nobody really expected could end up costing the Braves potentially their postseason.
Yeah, I think the Braves knew, because the way they kept on pushing him back that last week of the regular season, there's no baseball reason not to try to clinch a playoff spot sooner. And, they kept pushing him back to like they were at an elimination state. And when they said that should have been our sign. And then, of course, he got scratched in the second game in that doubleheader. And then you really knew, he's in trouble. And not on the postseason roster for at least this series, this round of playoffs. If the Braves can rally, we'll see what happens in the NLDS. But right now, their backs are against the wall. I mean, Michael King was so good yesterday, Steve. Did you see the movement? I mean, he tunneled the sweeper and the sinker so well, and they went opposite directions. Just so fun to watch.
No doubt. In fact, he struck out Travis d'Arnaud on a pitch that by the time d'Arnaud was finished swinging, the ball was about 10 to 15 feet away from his bat.
Yeah, I was going to say Escondido is that far out. I mean, it was crazy how much break it had on that there. And that's what tunneling does, though. You're thinking it might go one way and it goes the other, and you just look like a fool. Pitchers are wizards these days, and you see it. If you follow baseball, you see it on a day-to-day basis. But then you see in the playoffs, you get all these standalone games, and you really start to appreciate just how good the pitching is these days.
You're so right. We're talking to Jeff Erickson from RotoWire.com, your one-stop shop for fantasy sports. Let's talk fantasy football for the remainder of the segment right now, and we'll begin with the big story, and that is Davante Adams. It looks like he will be traded away from the Raiders, so the question is, where will he go? Apparently he wants the Saints and the Jets. Those two teams are high on his wish list. The Steelers have also been interested. This is the biggest storyline really of the NFL season so far, is where does one of the game's best receivers end up?
Yeah, and keep in mind, he doesn't have a no-trade clause. So it's not like he can just say, no, I'm not going to do that. He may say he might not report, but, the Raiders don't have that urgency to accommodate him. They need to get what they can get from him. They want that second-round pick. We'll see if the Jets and the Saints are willing to offer that up. Obviously he wants to go back to his two former QBs. That's kind of what he was kind of suggesting on that. But, it takes that offer to get there. It doesn't necessarily mean that those two teams can lowball the Raiders and say, okay, well, he wants to come to us, so you better take what we're offering. I don't think it's going to work that way. So we'll see how this all plays out. I'm
so interested to see where he ends up going when it's all said and done. Then I'm trying to think of, from like a fantasy standpoint, where would be the best landing spot for Davante Adams as far as fantasy?
Kansas City. But, I don't think they'll trade in division. But if Kansas City were to offer the best deal, the Raiders should take it, by the way. They shouldn't let the whole divisional thing stand in the way. But, you imagine Davante Adams with Patrick Mahomes. I'm assuming Rashee Rice is going to be out long-term, if not the rest of the season. I know we're still waiting for confirmation on the severity of the injury, but whether it's an ACL or not. But at the very least, that would be such a fun fit for him there. I could see it being fun in Buffalo too. I could see it being fun in Dallas. Can you imagine him being pairing him up with CeeDee Lamb? That could be really exciting.
No, that would be wild. And by the way, they need him because Brandon Cooks will be out at least one game, potentially longer. That story just broke earlier today. An infection developed in his right knee following a procedure last week after the win against the Giants. It's a little bit of a bizarre story, and the Cowboys they need a secondary receiver behind CeeDee Lamb, and Cooks was thought to be that guy, and now it's going to maybe give Jalen Tolbert a chance to get some more activity this week.
Yeah, and Tolbert was kind of surpassing him anyhow. So, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. It's a bad matchup against the Steelers, but nonetheless, definitely a good passing offense that you want to see more of there. So that would be a lot of fun. I think if you turn around and decide to send Adams to Dallas, that would be neat. I think Detroit would also be kind of fun too. Detroit's kind of one of those teams that, screw it, we're just going to go for it type of team. So I wouldn't mind seeing that one too.
You're right. And by the way, this week is our first bye week in the NFL. So if you own anybody in fantasy football from either Detroit, the Chargers, Philadelphia, or Tennessee, you're out because they're all on buys. And what does that mean? That means that certain players are going to be starting to see their values increase, like Jaden Daniels, who is third this week on your value meter at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, and I don't love the matchup, but I just love how he's playing. I love how the offense is functioning. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit for doing his damage against the Giants, Bengals, and Cardinals. That's entirely possible. I might ratchet it back, but I can't imagine sitting him if I have him. Although I'll say this, Steve, I've got a league where I've got both Jaden Daniels and Dak, so every week I'm going to have a tough decision.
A very, very tough decision. In fact, this week, I guess it's an easier decision going with Jaden Daniels against Cleveland's defense versus Dak Prescott and the Steelers' defense.
Yes, but absolutely. Daniels at home or the Steelers on the road. And I think that one's pretty easy. That one I won't struggle with as much. But last week was a real struggle. So we'll see. By the way, going back to Dallas real quick, I love Jake Ferguson this week too. With Cooks out, without that real solid number two, Ferguson's going to get plenty of targets. He's one of like 3 tight ends that I feel comfortable starting week in, week out right now, in addition to Kelsey and Kittle.
How bad is it if you own Patrick Mahomes for his fantasy value now that Rashee Rice is lost for the season?
I've got Mahomes down at 11 this week. I had my colleague Chris Meany from FTN Fantasy on our podcast today, and he says he's got him down at 13. So that gives you an idea. I mean, it's been this way for about a year and a half now. Week one notwithstanding, where they looked a little bit more dynamic, for the most part, the Chiefs' offense in the regular season hasn't looked that crazy good. And Mahomes hasn't been a massively good fantasy player.
Yeah, and by the way, there's a lot of guys that they're taking beatings. Look, Aaron Rodgers took a beating last week against Denver, and considering they got to go fly to London, and now all of a sudden his knee is not doing good, that's the last thing Jet fans need.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he had to run too much.
Yeah,
that's the thing. He had to scramble too much, and then he talking about how his knee was sore and a little swollen afterward. Taking a cross ocean flight, at least it's from the East Coast there, so it won't be as bad. But it's not ideal.
I know you like Justin Fields this week with that matchup against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I do. Cowboys lost Micah Parsons. They lost DeMarcus Lawrence. And then they're not that good at stopping the run to begin with there. I think that Fields is going to get a lot of scramble yards here.
What about also Kyler Murray against San Francisco?
I am confused on Kyler Murray. I don't know why Washington was able to shut him down when they weren't able to shut down other teams, why that pass rush was able to get to him so much. I mean, maybe they were really missing Trey McBride that much, and McBride will be back this week. He was returning in practice today, so I'm assuming he'll be back from his concussion this week. I'm struggling with his ranking, but again, he strikes me as another one of those I'm not going to bench him if I have him type of guys.
Jeff Erickson with us from RotoWire.com. I'll tell you a guy that I'm worried about right now, Bijan Robinson. He just hasn't been able to go off yet for Atlanta. He's been fine, but not like the top overall pick or running back with Breece Hall that we've seen. I'll get to Breece in a second. How bad right now is that hamstring injury? And if you own Tyler Algier, do you go with him this week?
So Bijan got the all clear today in practice, so I'm assuming he's good to go for tomorrow night. I don't like that it's a short week, but usually running backs in short weeks are pretty good. We saw a big game out of Bijan in week 2 against the Eagles, and we could see what he can do. I think that after, the Falcons, I mean, they won last week, but they didn't score an offensive touchdown. It was a pretty ugly offensive performance. I think they'll bounce back a little bit against the Bucs. I think it's interesting facing the Saints and the Bucs in divisional home games in back-to-back weeks. Kind of an important stretch for Atlanta here. I think there'll be some bounce back here. I'm going to start, if I have Bijan, I don't actually have Bijan anywhere, but if I had him, I'd start him without hesitation.
All right, same goes for Breece Hall, considering there's a lot of talk in the New York area right now that Braylon Allen is the guy. He's the one bouncing off tacklers and making the yardage, while last week was just a nightmare for Breece Hall and the Jets.
Everybody loves the backup. And, the backup always gets the carries when he's in, too. I think that Breece Hall will be all right. But, yeah, I'm more concerned about Breece Hall than I am Bijan. But I'm also still starting Breece Hall. I'm still going to roll with him. In fact, I think he's probably a buy low. I don't think the Jets' offense is going to be that dysfunctional all season long. I think this was a bit of a one-off here. And Denver's a really good defense. I think that has something to do with it, too. I think you'll see a bounce back from Breece.
All right, I'm looking at your wide receivers rankings. It seems like it's pretty much the regular suspects this week. Is there anybody in particular that might not be, in most consideration that you really like from a matchup standpoint?
Well, I like Dontavian Wicks, just both from his opportunity with Christian Watson out and the matchup against the Rams, who I don't think are going to be that good at stopping anyone. I'd also throw out Wan'Dale Robinson as a consideration. Watch out for Malik Neighbors. They played, a week ago, and he's still in the concussion protocol, did not practice today. Still can make it by Sunday, but that's something to be concerned about there. Robinson's tied for fourth in the NFL in targets, little known fact, but the problem is almost all of them are short. A lot of before the sticks type of plays. We saw that on Thursday night. But if you're in a PPR league, that still plays.
Let's wrap it up.
There's some value there.
Let's wrap it up with tight end talk. Kyle Pitts and Mark Andrews. There's nobody more disappointing than these two. I think that Andrews, something happened in that car accident that's just, I can't explain it, but he's not the same. They're making him block more. He hasn't caught many targets at all this year. Mm-hmm. He's completely confusing. Maybe it's Likely's emergence. I don't know in Baltimore what's causing that, but man, Kyle Pitts, it's like, how many more years can you think this is the turning point and it's the same stuff?
100% agree that the car accident is being underplayed as a possibility here. Plus, he's coming back from a major injury. The hip drop tackle got outlawed because of his injury. And I think we got to remember that too. He's at an age there where he might start to decline. But I really do think the accident, where he didn't practice for 2 weeks afterwards, but because it was training camp, we didn't have daily injury reports on him, and we didn't have that drumbeat. So we didn't really know exactly what the issue here was with him. And I think the Ravens are kind of playing a little touch and go with that, with the disclosure information there. But they say he's not on the injury list, but at the same time, he's certainly not fully part of their plans. I think at some point he'll emerge like that. But I know some people are thinking about cutting him. I wouldn't do that yet, but I would consider benching him this week.
Let's talk about what you've got at RotoWire.com. Of course, your value meter highlights this week's stories, but a lot of information, a lot of content up for all sports right now at RotoWire.com.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We got Mario Puig's got his wide receiver versus corners later in the week. Jerry Donabedian has his target breakdown, his streaming defenses article. Kevin Payne's got we've got 3 different free agent articles, but Kevin Payne's got the lead one there that he does every year. We've got all sorts of breaking news, all sorts of stats for you. By the way, it's also hockey and NBA draft season, too, for our fantasy leagues. Hockey starts soon. NBA, I've got my hoops draft on October 21st, so I'm looking forward to that. But it's all right around the corner. You guys can check it out for free. RotoWire.com/free gets you a free trial. No credit card is required. Just plug in a valid email address, and off you go for a couple free days.
Love it. So much going on. Meanwhile, Gunnar Henderson is the last chance for Baltimore going up against her. Seg is trying to close it out, and man, it's crazy, but it's starting to look more and more like we could be talking about the Royals advancing. Unbelievable, Jeff.
Especially how they finished the regular season. They lost 7 in a row going into the last week. Took advantage of a good schedule that last week, at least the first half where they played the Nats, and then they had to go to the Braves. But they got it. They got to the dance. They got to the tournament. Once you get to the tournament, anything can happen. Once again, we're seeing underdogs win.
We sure are. And right now, 1 strike away. And that's it. Just like that, Gunnar Henderson strikes out, and the Royals have just knocked out the Baltimore Orioles. Unbelievable. unbelievable. That I would not have expected, no matter how much you would have drawn it up. But that's the beauty of baseball and playoff baseball, right? It's this all of a sudden, this wild card round is like the NHL playoffs. You never know, and home field doesn't matter right now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. What a shock. I think the Orioles are and these best of 3 series, I mean, they're over in a flash.
Yep.
I mean, that's the thing. There's no rhythm to it. There's no travel. It's just boom, done. And here we go. And so far, two 2-0 sweeps by the road team. In fact, road teams are now 5-1 in these 2 days of playoffs. Only the Padres have won as a favorite so far in the playoffs.
Unbelievable. Now, I got to remember, when was the last time Royals, Yankees, really in the playoffs have played each other? That's another wild story to think about because I know it started in 76 and 77 and 78 and 80. This might actually be, believe it or not, the first time since 80 that the Royals and Yankees have played in the postseason.
You know, that's a great point. So they don't reseed then?
No.
Because the Tigers are the 6, obviously. Wow. That's amazing stuff.
First time in 44 years. Unbelievable. Jeff, great job as always. We'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for the time.
You bet. Thanks, Steve.
Jeff Erickson, folks, from RotoWire. We'll come back, wrap things up, get you ready for some more playoff baseball. Braves and Padres coming up top of the hour with ESPN Radio and 600 ESPN El Paso. Final countdown here on Sports Talk. By the way, want to let everybody know that Social Ice is this week's dining deals, and we were fortunate enough to have them here at the radio station. They brought their food truck over this morning, and oh my goodness, that what they have is incredible. I'll tell you what, so many great signature frozen treats. We had the funnel cake, the fried Oreos, the fried Twinkies. We also had some great non-dairy ice cream that was available, and of course the ices. They did it right, folks, and they are giving you the opportunity to enjoy $50 for just $25. They're on Facebook and Instagram, social.ice. Follow them, and I'll tell you what, you will enjoy in a big way a sweet treat this week for our dining deals. It is Social Ice, $50 for just $25. As we wind things down, hey, Michael Plundo is joining us on our Longhorn Distributing Hotline, our former intern. He's going to wrap us up on the program today. Michael, it's been a busy week for us here in El Paso. How are you?
I'm doing great, Steve. Good to get a chance to call you guys.
You too. All right, first off, reaction to the news, UTEP going to the Mountain West.
Crazy. As, growing up in El Paso, I never once imagined that UTEP would change conferences, but here we are in 2024, and the UTEP Miners are going to be a part of the Mountain West. I bet everyone is buzzing with excitement down there, and it sucks I can't see it.
I know. It's been a lot of fun around here, and that's going to continue all the way up until 2026 when they compete for the first time with so many former WAC schools now in the Mountain West. Texas Tech is off to a good start. You got a big one against Arizona this weekend.
Yep, a big one indeed. Arizona got a really tough defense, so Texas Tech's offense is going to be put to the challenge. I got to work, in fact, the first game, this recent game, against Cincinnati, where I was behind the camera. So that was pretty cool, and it was just overall a fun game to work, I'd say.
Now, about a minute left in the show, so we're about to wrap things up and get ready for baseball with the Pods and the Braves. But Steelers-Cowboys, a lot of fun coming up for you this weekend.
Yeah, I can't wait. First ever Sunday night between these two teams. Looking forward to that. I think the winner of this game is going to be whoever can win the trenches. Cowboys defensive line Achilles heel struggling so far. Steelers offensive line just lost their right guard and right tackle for the season. So I think who can ever dominate in the trenches is going to come away victorious here.
Excellent job. All right, Michael, I know it's been a short, sweet call, but a good job, man. Appreciate you calling in. A lot of fun. You're going to have a ton on your plate, and looking forward to having you back on the show again.
Of course. We'll see you then.
All right. He's Michael Plundo joining us as we wrap things up here on what's going to be a 2-hour edition of Sports Talk. We've got Game 2, Padres-Braves coming up. For Alberto Dueta and, of course, for George, who's been interning with us, I'm Steve Kaplowitz. We're doing it again tomorrow live at the District.
This October, Tanger invites you to shop pink and save lives. Your donation of $10 or more to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation helps fuel innovative research that brings us closer to a cure. It also unlocks exclusive savings from brands like Coach, Crocs, Columbia Factory Store, and more to shop all month long. Join us as we mark 30 years of advancing research and empowering hope. Donate and access your exclusive savings today at Tanger.com.